and welcome to Karen's Kitchen Easy. Together with our kitchen basics, easy to follow recipes, tips, and tricks, we're going to make you the star of your kitchen. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my YouTube channel and look at the link below this video. It will take you to karenskitcheneasy.com where you can find a printable version of today's recipe. And just remember, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But wait, it is easy, and you can do it too. Today's recipe is easy profiteroles. Profiteroles are also called cream puffs, and they're so easy to make and so versatile. And as you can see, we only have 4 ingredients. Just 4. We have a cup of flour, we have a stick of butter, we have 4 whole eggs, and a cup of water. Now we're going to cook this batter before we bake them, and so that's why I have my hot plate here and my pan getting ready to work. And so we're just going to start by putting our cup of water into the pot, and I've got it set on about medium-high. And to that, we're going to add our stick of butter. Now I have it cubed up to make it faster to melt, but just pop that into your water and get the water nice and hot to where the butter is going to melt. I'm going to move everything over here so you can see things a little bit better. And just give it a stir. And once the butter is all melted, through the magic of television, we're going to add our flour. We're going to add it all at once because we're just going to keep stirring it until all the lumps get out of it. And it's pretty well melted there. You might want to monitor your heat so it doesn't go too high once you pour the flour in. But we're just going to take the flour, there we have it nice and boiling, and dump it all in at once. And then just start stirring. And it'll be a little lumpy at first. But once you stir, as you can see, it's going to start thickening immediately. And you might want to turn the heat down just a little bit at this point. But just keep stirring, and as you stir, those lumps are going to come out of it. Now, I wouldn't use a whisk for this. I would use a spoon, or in particular, a wooden spoon. You can control a little bit better, and as you can see, it's starting to get very thick. And as we keep stirring it, and the thicker it gets, it's actually going to start separating from the sides of the pan, and that's what you want. You're going to want a thick, pretty much like a dough when you're done with it. So we're just going to keep stirring, and as you can see, it's pulling away from the sides of the pot and getting very nice and thick. And that's what we want. So just keep stirring it for another minute or two. Now when we're done, and you can see how beautiful and thick it is, we're actually going to let it cool for a minute or two, because when we put the eggs in, we don't want the eggs to scramble. We just want them to be incorporated nicely. So I'm going to keep cooking this for another minute, making sure that it's just as thick as it can possibly get, and it's as smooth as you can get. That's very important. We want all those little lumps of flour out of there. And we have it just about ready here. And when we have it as thick as we want it, which is, as you can see, very thick, we're actually going to take it out of our pan, and we're going to put it in a bowl to cool. So here's our bowl. Move things out of the way a little bit here. And you don't have to put it in the fridge or anything. Just set it on the counter for about 10 or 15 minutes. Let some of that steam escape. And there, it's a little bit cooler now, about 15 minutes. And as you can see, it's very thick. We're going to put our eggs in one at a time. Now, as you can see, I've cracked them all into a bowl here. And I do that because I want to be careful not to get shells in my mixture. You really can't see them in the dough here. So we're just going to dump one egg at a time and then stir very quickly and get it all incorporated into the dough or batter. And when that's pretty well blended in, we'll put our second egg in. And just keep stirring. You do want to stir very quickly because the mixture is still warm. And once again, we don't want those eggs to cook. We just want to get them beautifully blended in with the rest of our batter. And as you can see, with the extra eggs in, the batter is starting to get just a little bit thinner, but it's still got a lot of body to it. So once you have the second egg in, we're going to put our third egg in. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to exactly measure each egg into it because you know that all 4 eggs are at one point going to go into it. So just keep stirring. And when that's all incorporated, you've got one more egg to put in. There we go. And now look at the lovely batter that we've got. It's all blended together. Now at this point, we're actually going to put it into a pastry cone. And you've seen me use these before. You can get ones that are disposable, just like this. It's a plastic cone. And I've put a little tip in the bottom of it. It's a rather large star tip. Now you can, if you want, you can just snip off the edge of the plastic cone and squeeze it out here. But we're going to pipe it onto, you can see I've got a tray already prepared here to go in the oven, and I've lined it with parchment paper, baker's parchment. You don't have to do that. You can just grease the bottom of the pan if you'd rather. The baker's parchment just helps it to release, and it keeps the bottom from getting too brown. So I'm going to pack my batter down into the cone, and what I'm going to do when I'm done here is to pipe a little mound onto my parchment paper. And you want the mound to stand up. You don't want a flat disc on your parchment paper. You want a mound because that's going to help your profiterole or cream puff raise up beautifully. So I'm just cramming as much as I can here. And if you have room, you're going to twist the top then. And here's my paper. And as you can see, I've got quite a handful here. Just going to squeeze and force it through that little tip. I know you can't see my first one there, but let me put one in this corner. You see, I've put a mound just rather high on there. And I've piped a few more on. And when you've piped some on, what you want to do is take a little dish of water and wet your finger and just pat the top of it down a little bit because you don't want any little peaks standing up. You want a nice smooth mound. So there's my water. And see, I'm just going to dab it around a little bit and help to shape it a little bit into an attractive lump. An attractive mound of our batter. And our batter is actually called a choux, which is spelled C-H-O-U-X, another French term for you to throw around. And that's that very stiff batter that we're using. So I've made my little mounds all nice and smooth with a little bit of water here. And I'm going to finish piping and putting them on the plate, on the dish here. And here we are. Got about a dozen or 15 all told. And they're going to go in the oven. And at this point, we'll set the oven for 420 degrees. It's a relatively hot oven. And we're going to bake them for about 25 minutes. Now, at the end of that 25 minutes, turn the oven off and let them set in there for another half hour. Let me pipe a few more on here. I'm making a glorious mess here, and it's fun to kind of get your hands all messy when you bake. I'm going to fill up as many as I can here. And they don't have to be perfect. That's what makes them so lovely, that everyone knows they're handmade and you made them yourself. But the reason they're going to sit in the oven then is that you want them to dry out a little bit. You don't want them to be too moist inside. So I'm forming them up a little bit more. There. Shape them up a little bit more. I know I'm a bit of a perfectionist here. But you can see they're lovely little mounds. And they're going to go in the oven then at 420 degrees for 25 minutes. And then sitting for another about a half an hour in the oven as it's cooling down and they're drying. And then you can see we have these lovely puffy cream puffs or profiteroles. There are a lot of things you can do with them. You can cut them and you can put chicken salad or ham salad in them, or you can make them sweet. I'm going to make them sweet, and so I'm going to make a ganache now to put over top. I've started with a cup and a half of chocolate chips, and I've got 3/4 of a cup of very hot cream to pour into them. This is going to be a topping for my profiteroles. So here's my 3/4 of a cup of hot cream. I'm just going to pour the two together. And the hot cream is actually going to melt the chocolate, so we don't have to put it over the stove or anything like that, but just give it a stir. It's going to take a couple of minutes to get everything all lovely and incorporated, but just very slowly start stirring the chocolate in with the cream. And as you can see, it's becoming very beautiful and chocolatey. And when you finish stirring everything in, you can use it either very hot, at which point it's dippable, or pourable. But you can also let it sit for a few minutes, and then it becomes a little thicker, which is what I want. As you can see, it's a little thicker now. And now I can actually put it into a piping bag, another disposable piping bag, which I've actually snipped the bottom off a little bit, just to make a very small hole. It's hard to see there with the clear plastic, but I've snipped a little bit off. And I folded the top down so I don't get my hands quite as messy as I did with my shoe batter. But I've actually filled my cream puffs, some of them with just sweetened whipped cream, and some of them with actually a peanut butter ice cream. You simply slice them in half, fill them, and put the top back on. And again, you can fill them with so many things, pudding, just a lot of things. You could even fill them with ganache. But there, I've folded the top back up, I've twisted the top, so I just simply have a little cone here, and I'm going to have fun with this. I'm actually going to put a little decorative zigzag top on my profiteroles, and it'll make them look a little bit more designery. There we go. And I get a little bit on the paper. It's okay. I'm going to throw the paper away. But there we go. There's our little zigzag top. And of course, when we're done, we're going to want to put these back in the freezer, and that will harden up the chocolate, and of course it will refreeze the ice cream. So there we have a beautiful zigzag decorator top, and there we have it. Profiteroles that you made yourself. Impress your friends. They're delicious. So I'll see you next time on Karen's Kitchen Easy.